Welcome to Biosignals, the podcast powered by BioCrossroads, where we decode the pulse of Indiana's life sciences sector. Each episode, we bring you the innovators, breakthroughs, and bold ideas shaping the future of health and science. Welcome to Biosignals. I'm your co-host, Nathan Brown. One of the greatest challenges in biomedical research isn't making a discovery, it's turning that discovery into something that improves patients' lives. The path from a promising scientific breakthrough to a new therapy is long, complex, and often filled with obstacles. That's why translational research and strong industry partnerships have become so critical to advancing innovation. Today's guest is Dr. Alan Palkowitz, President and CEO of the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, or IBRI. Alan is a veteran pharmaceutical R&D leader with decades of experience in drug discovery, translational science, and therapeutic development. Throughout his career, he has helped advance innovative therapies and led teams focused on transforming scientific insights into real-world impact. Let's listen into the conversation between Alan and Vince Wong.
Alan, welcome.
Thank you, Vince. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
I'm pleased to have you join Biosignals, which is our opportunity to really tell the rest of the world our best kept secrets of the Indiana life science ecosystem. And I would put the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, the IBRI, the organization that you lead, like right up top of that list.
Well, thank you. Really happy to the opportunity to share more and tell you about where we're headed.
Yeah. So, Alan, maybe to start personally, share a little bit about your career journey and how you got to IBRI. You had a really wonderful, productive, and successful career in industry and academia. And so maybe tell the audience a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so just kind of dialing back, I grew up in the Bay Area in California, and I went to Berkeley as an undergraduate and was started as a computer science major because that was at the time when Apple first came on the scene, and everybody wanted to do that.
Right.
But I took my first chemistry class and was converted and really developed a passion for chemistry, in particular organic chemistry. And there I through internships and undergraduate research, I met a number of graduate students and postdocs at the time that were going to pursue careers in industry, in the pharmaceutical industry. And that really clicked things for me in terms of this idea that you can make molecules and have them impact disease and patients. It really kind of was a hook that really got me very excited. So after that, I went to MIT for my PhD in organic chemistry. And from there, I was very fortunate in the fall of '89 to join Eli Lilly and Company as a entry-level synthetic organic chemist, which is really the beginning entry point to become a medicinal chemist.
Great. And how many years did you spend at Lilly?
Yeah, so I was 28 years at Lilly. And in my last 11 years, I led a small molecule drug discovery for Lilly across all the areas of therapeutic focus, and was also part of the leadership team for research, which oversaw kind of a broad portfolio of projects all the way from very early entry, more fundamental science, all the way to the end of phase 2, which was really at the time sort of the product decision for Lilly. So gave a vast view of a lot of great science, but also had the opportunity to work with some of the most amazing people that I could ever have wished to encounter in my career as collaborators, as mentors, and that really made it quite special.
That's great. And so after your great career at Lilly, what was your next journey?
Yeah, so when I retired in 2017, I, like many of my colleagues, took an early retirement opportunity, and it really was a gift. And I really thank the leadership at Lilly at the time for making that an opportunity for us. And, for me, it was a chance to do something totally different. I didn't want to go and really do what I had just done in a different setting, a different scale. I really wanted to try something different. And so I had always had a longstanding relationship with Anantha Shaker and Dean Hess. And they said, why don't you come over and help us? We're starting this precision health initiative. So that really kind of led me to join the IU School of Medicine. And there, a couple days in, Anantha said, we have this new RFA that came from the NIH to put together an Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Center. You can compete for. It might be a good experience. So I was a naive freshman. I had no idea what writing a grant was about. But 3 months later, in about 800 pages, we submitted a proposal, and we got funded. And that really began sort of a journey for me that really helped me understand, how do you do translational work within an academic setting, which, really showed me a lot of potential, because it wasn't such a structured environment that I came from, but it also had limitation because it wasn't set up to do necessarily the types of things that really facilitate the movement of an idea to create a molecule and advance into the clinic. So right about that time we got the grant, 2020, I was approached by Dean Hess and John Lecklider and Dan Evans from the IBRI, and they said, we're looking for a new CEO. Is this something you'd be interested in? And for me, it all kind of clicked together because what I had experienced in industry, what I experienced in my short time in the academic world, really saw an opportunity for creating something new and different that would really fill a gap and really create a new sandbox for how you can do translational science, taking the best from both worlds and making a new one that actually could really be an effective partner, but also a new kind of catalyst for innovation.
That's great. Let's talk about what is the IBRI and kind of maybe a little bit about its genesis story and how it's evolved over time.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. So the IBRI has a interesting history. It was started in 2013. It was a vision between corporate, government, philanthropy, university leadership that really saw the potential for a independent research institute that would sit in between the very strong academic structure that we have in the state, but also the very powerful and strong industry, presence that we have through, Roche and Lilly and Elanco and so on and so on. And so, the early days of the IBRI, I think it was with the leadership that was in place, was really trying to find its place and its footing. And there was some good starts, but there were some learnings that actually kept it from moving forward. There was, adoption of more of an academic model that really didn't scale well. And also it was limited in diabetes research, which, was really a good initial alignment with Lilly and the School of Medicine, for example. But it really, probably wasn't enough to really to grow a broader focus. So, there was some additional transition in leadership. And by the time came along in 2020, and really having some my own ideas that were formulated, I saw some really great opportunities. One from a therapeutic area focus was really thinking about leveraging the foundations I've been part of creating with the IU team in Alzheimer's disease. We also we're continuing diabetes research, but also saw the potential to expand that into the broader cardiometabolic framework, which now is a key driver of a lot of great innovation and advances in human health. And then thirdly, pediatric cancer. So for an institute like ours, pediatric cancers and pediatric diseases are relatively underserved. And so we thought it would be a great opportunity to make inroads there and really create some programs that would not only, advance possibilities for treating kids, but also really bring in some of the great community resources and expertise, for example, at Riley and other areas that we're looking to coalesce on this problem in a new way. So that's how we evolved. We've kind of been thinking a little bit more forward. So pediatric diseases is one, but we're beginning to envelope neurodegeneration and cardiometabolic under more of a horizon of diseases of aging. And this is where, if we look up, 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to continue to evolve and follow the science in that direction. The other thing that we've done here at the IBRI is really build a capability, a talent, a technology base that really is fine-tuned on being able to take innovative ideas or science from wherever they come from, insights of disease, and put them on a translational path to a molecule, which is our currency for being able to test a hypothesis in patients and ultimately create value.
That's great. You've alluded to it a couple times how you are distinguishing, the structure and operating model of IBRI from that of the academic world.
Yeah.
And also different from the private sector. Maybe talk a little bit more about that operating model, and specifically how it contrasts from a traditional academic.
So I think what's different from a traditional academic environment is, you tend to have, areas of focus, but you have individual investigators that, are pursuing different lines of investigation that are, associated with, maybe interests they have in a particular protein or aspect of the disease origins and whatnot. So you have a lot of diverse interests that are, that form part of that network. At the IBRI, we probably look more like a biotech or actually a company where we actually have a focus on an area where we're aligning cross-functional resources around a portfolio of ideas and concepts that actually, contribute to understanding disease. And we do that through collaboration and through, different relationships with companies and so forth. But we have a very intentional focus on producing, molecules or potential therapeutic agents from that work that can be advanced and further that translational question into the clinic. And then hopefully, if we're successful, also create a business opportunity through those assets that can really help grow the economy here.
Yeah. I think part of the origin or originating thesis for IBRI was that it would serve as a very powerful translational vehicle for the really awesome world-class basic science research happening at our R1 universities, whether it be Notre Dame, IU, or Purdue. And really what we've seen on your leadership, Alan, in the last several years is getting that fulfillment of that vision and opportunity, which has been tremendous. And I think maybe talk a little bit about your new next step in your evolution in terms of how you're trying to create opportunities for attracting a private capital into entities that will take assets out of your research laboratories towards development commercialization. So
yeah, well, thanks, Vince. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So a key part of our evolution is how do we fund our work? So we have a number of diverse revenue streams that we've activated. We participate in research grants as a way of participating in fundamental science, but also it's a good way to, establish our credibility and actually go through that very rigorous peer review process.
Sure.
We work with companies that contract our work, and actually in some cases we participate in joint activities and value creation with those companies. So that's another way that we have our, we think about income. And there's a couple others we can get to later, but on this particular line, we are creating some of our own independent IP. And some of that intellectual property is whether we do it ourselves or maybe we do it in a pre-company framework with another organization, can really be something that could draw attention from investors and allow us to move it forward. So this past year, we created a for-profit subsidiary called Libris Innovations. And really, this is a venture creation arm for the IBRI. It's a for-profit subsidiary, so it allows us to preserve our non-for-profit status. But it does two key things. One, it holds the equity from IBRI Innovation, and that becomes a taxable entity. And so it helps to preserve that important wall for IRS purposes. But second, it's really designed to help really stand up early stage companies. Not only in terms of planning, but also making sure there's a very strong investment thesis. There's a very strong teams that are put together. There's the right kind of network to investors and being able to position these assets for value creation and moving them forward to patients. So that really allows us at the IBRI to go back and reinvest in creating more science. So having this independent arm is really quite unique because it really takes the best that we create and puts on maybe hopefully a more successful path than just leaving things to chance and without having the right teams assembled or the right expertise or the right business mindset that really has to interface with a very demanding investor community. We're very fortunate to have hired our inaugural CEO, Ramani Varanasi. She's based in Boston, has a lot of experience in venture creation, and she's been a tremendous partner in putting Libris Innovations on the map and helping to launch our first company. We're very excited about Valari Therapeutics, which is a really interesting approach in the cardiometabolic space that we're positioning for a lot of a great opportunity ahead.
That's great. No, that's a super exciting development in the next iteration or journey and evolution of the IBRI.
You are listening to Biosignals, the podcast powered by BioCrossroads. Let's get back to the conversation with Vince and Alan.
One also really tremendous dimension of the IBRI that's really developed over the last couple of years is Legend Labs.
Yeah.
So maybe share a little with the audience what is Legend Labs and maybe the composition of the folks that are operating within Legend Labs.
Sure. This is great. So when the IBRI was first formed or envisioned, it was thought that in addition to this translational role, it could really be a great resource for young companies that are kind of in the early stages of fundraising, and in that model we can actually provide access and really a low cost alternative to prime research space, laboratory space, office space, and so it's really an incubator. But I think it has additional elements to it. Um, we are able to pass through access to a lot of our equipment. We have a community of really, smart scientists, but also business professionals that are part of the IBRI and that actually serve as sort of a sounding board, an opportunity for casual interactions, really create a community of like-minded people that also serves as a possibility for future collaboration. So over the course of the last several years, we have on average about 15 companies a year that are co-located with us. Many of them have come from here in Indiana, whether it be IU, Purdue, or other private sources. And we've now been able to attract companies from out of state that see this as a really good place to be. And with them come the awareness to their investors and awareness of other things that are going on here in our community. So that's been, we think, a very positive contribution to growing the life science economy for the state. And just as of a couple weeks ago, we now have 4 of the most successful startups, focusing on therapeutics in the state, and here in our midst. So that really lends a lot of credibility to the model, but also it creates more of awareness that Indiana, the IBRI facility, our community can be a destination not only to start companies, but also assemble the talent and the infrastructure necessary to really begin to play on a national scale.
Yeah, that's great. Talk a little bit about the physical footprint, because maybe members of our audience
Yeah.
maybe haven't actually stepped foot into the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute. What is that physical footprint, and how much of it's kind of for IBRI research itself, but then also what's dedicated for future the Legend Labs?
Yeah, really, we have 3 floors of Innovation Building 1 here at the 16 Tech campus. We've been here since the fall of 2020. The first floor is sort of a conference area, but we also have our drug discovery laboratory, our molecular innovation lab that we dedicated in honor of Gus Watanabe, who was really a visionary, for a lot of not only a great mentor, but also a visionary for the community and what's possible in growing the life sciences for the state. And that's where we create IP, and we also have partners that or companies that take up some space and coexist with us in that setting. The same is true for the second and third floor, where we have more of our biological sciences, our disease science, some of the enabling technologies, for example, like our induced pluripotent stem cell lab that is something that's growing. But it's really a mix of technology, of capabilities that define our footprint, for translational work. And the companies really coexist with us. Some companies will have a bench, some companies maybe just take an office and they do more work virtually. It's really a dynamic mix, but it's one that I think is, if you look at what's happening within the walls of this building, is kind of like a microclimate of real intense science and business, pursuing a path to creating new things.
That's great. We talked a little bit about the burgeoning number of industry partnerships that you and your team have begun to forge and execute on, which I think has been a tremendous development here at IBRI.
Yeah, so very, very exciting, two that I'll just mention, and it just shows the different types of things that we're capable of engaging industry with. So, for example, with Elanco, we recently announced we're working with their scientists to create a cellular model of a feline kidney disease, which is one of the key problems for those that have cats as pets, and so they're trying to find new ways to screen for new medicines to impact that. So our technology, something that Elanco didn't possess, was very attractive to them. So we just felt a really nice relationship, and we'll co-develop a model that can really help in their product development activities. That's just one example. We're working with Lilly where Lilly's been a longtime partner of the IBRI, but now with our growing work in the cardiometabolic space and our expertise in incretin biology and neuroscience, they see opportunities to work with us to help explore some areas that maybe they don't have the internal resources to do, key questions that they would like answered, but don't really kind of fit their priorities internally. So it really creates a nice relationship of how we can partner as true partners in of developing science and seeing where that leads into potential collaborative opportunities that may be joint value creation. So and the list goes on. We have a number of other companies actually all over the United States that we've been able to attract here to work with us in that regards. And so that's really been part of a very active business development program and really a lot of outreach to really see how we can bring eyes and an opportunity to the state and to what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think you get more and more of these partnerships announced and results generated from them, publications generated from that work. You're just gonna be really feeding that flywheel of
Well,
innovation, right?
yeah, you're exactly right, Vince. I think that's one of the toughest things to do is, you know, you have to position yourself to meet the strategic needs of those that want to work with you. And if you're successful and you can not just do it once, but again, and do it reliably, then you'll emerge as a very strong partners and others will take notice. And so, that creates a lot of, demand for, having the right people, but also having the discipline to be able to deliver results that meet somebody else's business need. And because, it's very competitive, they can go anywhere. There's many groups they can do that, but to set yourself apart really takes a big investment in people and commitment to business goals.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about the work that you and the team are doing with regard to beginning to develop some non-animal models in silico modeling.
So this is really, really exciting. And, I think if you followed some of the guidance from the NIH and from the FDA, there is a move afoot to, in the future, begin to move away from the dependency on animal models for preclinical testing. And a number of issues are behind that. I think, there's, obviously the questions of animal use in general for research purposes, but also it's really the predictability, the translatability of animal studies to humans. And when I was at Lilly, and even for a lot of the work we do, there's a comfort in being able to see animal data and feeling good about that. But does it really kind of move you forward, or does it open questions? So one of the things that we've been doing through our own internal work and also through some large grants that we've been partnering with IU on, one example, is developing these microphysiologic systems, which really are focusing on humanizing preclinical science that are based on iPSC platforms that take human-derived sample or tissues or cells and reprogramming them to what I would say is tissues of interest, whether they're microglia in the brain, astrocytes, neurons, co-cultures, for example, whether they're nerve sheath tumors, work we're doing in the pediatric space, cardiomyocytes for looking at heart effects, the kidney disease that we're looking at with Elanco. So all these things are really part of where science is going, and we're developing expertise to be able to create these systems and couple them to other technologies. So thinking about how AI can actually help us take more information from experiments derived on these systems, understand individual genetic backgrounds of patients, and how we can interpret results on an interesting scale. I think when you begin testing pharmaceuticals in these models, you can think about potentially human avatars and maybe N of 1 clinical trials, and maybe to be able to go back in real time and impact a patient's course of therapy. There's really great opportunities here, and really the government and I think just the general scientific community is beginning to embrace this as a next generation approach. Now, I mean, there's a lot of hurdles, a lot of things to be validated and improved, but I think the IBRI, I mean, that fits perfectly within our model, and I think it's going to create more opportunities for collaboration, but also to participate on next generation grants from the federal government that are looking for making more and more advances in this space.
You've done a lot of capacity building of late. So maybe touch upon some of the functional skill sets that you're proud that you've attracted within the last 12, 18 months. And then if you look, forward on the horizon, like what are the incremental capabilities you would want to recruit into the IBRI to be able to help fulfill your vision and mission going forward?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Thanks for asking that. And I think it gets to the heart of talent, right? I mean, you need the right talent to be able to couple to the technologies to make things happen. And a lot of times it's interdisciplinary talent that could come together and really form that complete circle of expertise and capability, but also represent scientific diversity and different ways of thinking about problems that really allow things to move forward. And I like to use the analogy, it takes you outside the light of the lamppost, right? And allows you to go into those dark areas where the next innovations are waiting to be uncovered and advanced. So that's very, very important for us. So we have a lot of great capability in, I would say, medicinal chemistry, peptide medicinal chemistry, molecular design and optimization. We're building a very strong team in cellular pharmacology and the iPSC technology I mentioned, structural biology and biophysics, how we think about studying interactions between molecules and proteins, which is very key for understanding how things work. Enhancing our disease science expertise is we built. And then, one thing that's sort of the next level on top of that is interweaving advances in AI and really understanding how we can integrate more AI platforms into our process to really begin addressing the complexity of what we're doing at another level and hopefully move things forward more effectively. So that's very important. On the other side, there's a whole business aspect to the IBRI. So we've invested in building a BD team, which is very important for getting the message out and finding different types of relationships. We've created a philanthropic arm with the recruitment of Christopher Conway, who is really a professional philanthropist or philanthropy executive. And we really are looking to find donors that are like-minded, that want to have an impact, that want to be partners with us to really see real change. And so he's building a network in that regard. And we built a project management capability with the leadership of Christine Baduro, who actually is a former Lilly colleague, but she also happens to be president-elect of the American Chemical Society, which is really a tremendous honor. But Chris is just a master of really organizing work and really thinking through how to align talent and resources to make things happen. So those are things that we're blending into our platform
sitting here,
that we think are going to position us
how would
for
you,
sustained
what
growth
changes do you
scalability.
foresee, and where will IBRI be in 5 years under your leadership from where it is now?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Something kind of keeps me up at night a little bit, just thinking about the future. I do think there's a lot of macro changes happening. The changes in federal funding is requiring, institutes like our universities to really think about different models for how they can really leverage the work they create and create innovation. There's another force, I think, that's really the changing landscape of pharma, for example. They're becoming more customers of innovation and more development organizations than doing the primary research. So as I think about IBRI and I think about our community, how can we really position Indiana through work locally, but also extending across the world to really be a source of innovation that is really going to, find its way to pipelines of for companies that eventually are on the path to drugs and ultimately medicines that are successful and continue to change the world. That is kind of the vision. 5 years may be a little bit short for that, but I think there's so many things that I can point to and I'm excited about that say that we're stitching together a fabric that's going to be really, really special for the future.
Well, I say 5 years because just the progress that I've seen IBRI make in the last little over 2 years in your leadership, Alan, has been tremendous. And so I know your team's working hard under your leadership to drive towards that next level of impact. So that's why I'm really excited about that. Thanks, Alan. Great conversation.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
really, is our privilege and honor as a BioCrossroads organization to be one of the founding members of IBRI, and I really enjoy being able to serve on your board and to see all the tremendous work that you and the team are doing. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. Thanks for your partnership as well. I think the future is very bright for all of us.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
For more information about BioCrossroads, our events, programs, and how you can get involved, please visit biocrossroads.com.